Hi guys, it's Mishel, Deception Bytes, and I am back with the latest Q posts. Sorry that I'm late posting this, but by the time I got home today and looked into this, it started getting late. And there's so much more I could get into here because there's a lot of stuff in this latest drop, a lot of stuff. And I'm sure you've already been listening to some of the others out there that were a little bit more timely than I have been. So you probably have a good idea of what's going on, and that Q has been now locked out of the Great Awakenings on 8chan. So it's going to be another 1 to 2 days before he posts anything further because of that. Meanwhile, he's left us with lots of stuff to look into. So I'm going to travel through this as fast as I can because I don't have time to do 2 videos tonight, and there's a lot to cover, but I also don't want to just kind of skip by stuff that's really important. So anyway, let's get into it. Why did Kim travel to China? Why was travel impossible in the past? What changed? Well, I don't exactly understand all the ins and outs of why Kim traveled to China, but it's pretty obvious why he didn't travel in the past, because there was no ability to. It was run by the CIA, according to Q. The CIA was in control of it and was probably completely in control of Kim. Now, we have been told in past drops that those strings have been cut and that Kim is now free. So I would imagine that he's now free to travel to China. I know that China and the U.S. have had, no, not China and the U.S., China and Trump have a reasonably good relationship, from my understanding and everything that I've read, that there is a good relationship there. And so I would imagine that North Korea is going to be opened up to trade. That's what I foresee happening, and perhaps it was discussing something like that with China. I know it was in preparation to Kim's meeting with Trump, so anyway, there could be a number of reasons there, and we can guess, but I don't think any of us at this point know exactly. So why was travel impossible in the past? Well, that just, that's pretty obvious. What changed? Well, of course, the strings were cut and he's free now. Kim is free. That according to Q. What constitutes the need for a face-to-face meeting versus secured call? Well, that's pretty self-explanatory, don't you think? Because we know that they're able to listen to calls, and because Eric Schmidt was in there and, put in private communications and so forth. And, probably all of that has not been taken out yet. So we can assume that there was a need for a face-to-face meeting, and that a secured call would not really be a secured call, if you know what I mean. So I put, here, because all his calls are listened to, what U.S. publicly traded company previously, and this should not be in red. This was actually from Q. My bad. So then Q asked, well, what U.S. publicly traded company previously entered North Korea to establish communications? Well, it was Eric Schmidt, right, with Google. And Q says, think logically. Well, dang it, Q, that's what we're doing. Why did Google visit North Korea? Well, he's just told us to establish communications. Sometimes his communication frustrates me a little because he's giving us the answers, and, it just seems really obvious to me. But anyway, why did Google visit North Korea? To establish communications there, private communications. I don't know what all that entailed, and I don't think any of us do. Why would the former chairman and CEO himself, speaking of Eric Schmidt, of Google and Alphabet, which is another company owned by Google and Schmidt, personally attend? So why would the chairman and CEO personally attend? Well, that's another really obvious thing to me. He's a CIA asset, and he's doing their bidding. So he had to ensure that it was completed as ordered and maintain secrecy. So you're not going to just send anyone over there. You're going to go yourself because you're in charge. So you're going to make sure it's done according to specifications. And we know that he's a CIA asset. We've already been told that. So that seems obvious to me as well. Now, I can't remember what I put here for this link, but it'll surprise me again when I see it. Oh yes, how the CIA made Google inside the secret network behind mass surveillance, endless war, and Skynet. And this is very interesting. Insurge Intelligence, a new crowd-funded investigative journalism project, breaks the exclusive story of how the United States intelligence community funded, nurtured, and incubated Google as part of a drive to dominate the world through control of information. And we all know that whoever has the information has the control, right? I mean, goes without saying. Seed funded by the NSA and CIA, and that again, we've known because of Q. Seed funded by the NSA and CIA, Google was merely the first among a plethora of private sector startups co-opted by U.S. intelligence to retain information superiority. The origins of this ingenious strategy trace back to a secret Pentagon-sponsored group that for the last 2 decades has functioned as a bridge, there's that word bridge again, between the U.S. government and elites across the business industry, finance, corporate, and media sectors. The group has allowed some of the most powerful special interests in corporate America to systematically circumvent democratic accountability and the rule of law to influence government policies as well as public opinion in the U.S. and around the world. The results have been catastrophic. NSA mass surveillance, a permanent state of global war, and a new initiative to transform the U.S. military into Skynet. Well, if this isn't good stuff, I don't know what is. Now, hang on, because I lost my place. I got way too excited. Hang on. Where did I go? Come back. Come back. Okay. This exclusive is being released for free in the public interest and was enabled by crowdfunding, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that we don't need to see that. I think this is, hang on. Inside the secret network behind mass surveillance, endless war, and Skynet. Insurge Intelligence, a new crowd-funded investigative journalism project, breaks the exclusive story of how the United States intelligence community funded, nurtured, and incubated Google as part of a drive to dominate the world through control of information. This seems to be the exact same thing we just read. So what's up with that? I don't know, but that, I mean, we know this, right? In September 2013, the website of the Monetary Institute for International Studies Cybersecurity Initiative posted a final version of a paper on cyber deterrence by CIA consultant Jeffrey Cooper, vice president of the U.S. defense contractor SAIC and a founding member of the Pentagon's Highlands Forum. The paper was presented to then NSA Director Keith Alexander at a Highlands Forum session titled Cyber Commons Engagement and Deterrence. MIIS SciSec is formally partnered with the Pentagon's Highland Forum through a MOU signed between the provost. Oh, do we need to know this? Probably not. There's so much stuff. Oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. I'm gonna leave the link to this because there's a lot of stuff in here that needs to be mined out. But again, there was just so much in this drop that I haven't had a chance to like really dig in, because I mean it's kind of like the difference between diving into a kiddie pool and diving into the ocean. There's a lot here. There's a lot behind what he's saying here. So I'm going to leave that for you all because I know that we have some very, very smart people that listen, and we'll jump into that. So, let's go on. Where did we leave off here? Okay, who is Sergey Brin? Well, let's go take a boo and find out. Now, where is that note? There it is. Okay, here we are. Let me make this bigger, because I know some of you are on small devices. And okay, Sergey, not sure how to pronounce his real name, his middle name, I guess is, I'm not sure. Sergey Mikhailovich Brin, born August 21st, 1973, is a Russian-born American computer scientist and internet entrepreneur. Together with Larry Page, he co-founded Google. Brin is the president of Google's parent company, Alphabet Inc. As of February 2018, Brin is the 13th richest person in the world with an estimated net worth of $49.5 billion. Yes, that was with a B. Brin immigrated to the United States with his family from the Soviet Union. At the age of 6, he earned his bachelor degree at the University of Maryland, following in his father's and grandfather's footsteps by studying mathematics as well as computer science. After graduation, he enrolled in Stanford University to acquire a PhD in computer science. There, he met Page, with whom he later became friends. They crammed their dormitory room with inexpensive computers. They must have had a bigger dormitory room than I had in college. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I could barely turn around in mine. So they crammed their dormitory room with inexpensive computers and applied Brin's data mining system to build a web search engine. The program became popular at Stanford, and they suspended their PhD studies to start up Google in a rented garage. So that is who Brin Sergey is. And let's go down here, because there's more. There's always more. Now, where was he born? He was born in Russia. Now, Q says, track the family. Important. So let's do that. Because if Q asked us to, there must be something important there. And indeed there is. Sergey Brin was born to Russian Jewish parents, Michael Brin and Eugenia Brin. They were both graduates of Moscow State University. Sergey's father was a mathematics professor at the University of Maryland, and his mother was a researcher at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. Interesting? No. Both of the parents of Sergey Brin have earned renowned names in their respective fields. The family migrated to the United States when Sergey was just 6 years old. Now, who is his wife? Well, let's take a look. Anne Wojcicki, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name right, anyway, is a biologist in the United States and the co-founder and CEO of Personal Genome. Genome. I know it's about the genome, but I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Genomics. And just 1 second, because I have something in my eye and it's making it very difficult for me to see, so I'm just trying to get it out right now. I think it is a cat hair, which would not surprise me. Okay. Company 23andMe, I'm sure we've all heard of that company, 23andMe. She is California born and the daughter of Esther Wojcicki, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, and Stanley, whatever the last name is. Her sister is CEO of YouTube. Wow, okay, her sister's the CEO of YouTube. Her mother is Jewish and her father is Polish American. She graduated with a BS in biology in 1996 from Yale University. So she's a smart cookie too, evidently. And their son is Benji Eugen Brin. That's the son of Sergey Brin and Anne Wojcicki, I'm not sure. Both the parents donated their son's DNA to science. They donated their son's DNA to science. Now you can donate DNA to science. It doesn't mean that he's dead. He's alive. He's just, they donated his DNA. Interesting. Now, so after Q asked us to track the family, and we can see that this family is an up and coming, I mean, they're very important people. They've all got important jobs and they've all got a lot of influence. They're extremely wealthy. Excuse me. Now, Q says, think Cold War. And that's indeed when they immigrated, during the Cold War. So is Q hinting, and then he says, think KGB. Well, when I think Cold War, that is what I think. It's the KGB. Is Q hinting that they were planted by the KGB? And what would be the implications of that? Well, I'm not sure, but I would assume that that is what Q is hinting at here, because I don't see any other reason why he would bring it up. Because what difference would it make where he immigrated from, unless it made a difference where he immigrated from? You see what I'm saying? So I don't know, and I'm not sure what the implications of that would be, but I don't think that they would be good. So let's go on. And then he says, think KGB. And then he says, right afterwards, US, China, North Korea. So is he and then it has three, after he says that, 3 countries, and then he has them in a kill box. So were these the targets? Were these 3 countries the target of whatever Sergey was doing in developing Google? And we know what Google, we know all about that. Really, it's fascinating, actually. I had no idea. But I don't know. I look at this and I'm just telling you right now, that's what I see. Because he's talking up here, he's talking about Sergey and where's he from, track the family, it's important, and then think Cold War. Well, they did immigrate during the Cold War. So then he says, well, think KGB. Well, okay, he wouldn't be putting that out there unless there was a reason, right? So then there's the 3 countries, US, China, North Korea, 3's in a kill box. Well, these 3 countries must have been the target. That makes perfect sense to me. We already know that North Korea was run by the CIA. I don't know, it just makes sense to me. Now, Facebook data dump. And then he says, who made it public? Okay, that's a note to me because, okay, that's my note here, not Q's. Don't want to confuse anybody. I'll be confused enough for both of us. Okay, so who made it public? And then he says, who sold shares less than 30 days from the announcement? Well, that would be Zuckerberg, which, by the way, is insider trading. If you own a company and you know that something is, or you're a CEO of a company, or you're anybody in a company, and you happen to know information that the general public doesn't know, that maybe the company is going to go bankrupt, or maybe they're going to be involved in a lawsuit, or if you say work for, you know that 9/11 is going to happen, and so you trade all your stock in airlines, insider trading, and that you can go to prison for. Like, well, who was the famous person? Martha Stewart. She went to prison for insider trading, and it was piddly amount. I mean, when we're talking billions of dollars, I think it was $50,000 or something. I mean, it was an insanely small amount, according to what these people deal in all the time. So, yeah, that's against the law, Mark Zuckerberg, but I'm sure you already knew that. So let's go up here, Facebook data dump. Now, let's look at this link. This is from The Guardian. How can Facebook change when it exists to exploit personal data? Now, this doesn't really have to do with the data dump, but it sort of does. But I wanted to show you guys this just because I can. Isn't that a good question? How can Facebook change when it exists to exploit personal data? And that's why it was created. And it wasn't just two guys in their dorm room, because Q's already told us that, and we know this, it's all come out, that it was CIA, this was seeded, it was planned, it was, helped along and nurtured. And I remember hearing that way, way, way back when Google was in its infancy. I remember hearing that because I remember the first time a friend, she said, oh, you need to be using Google. This is when Google first came out. And I said, what? And she says, Google. And I said, what is Google? And she said, it's a new search engine. And so I started using it. And then it wasn't long after that, people would say, oh, you need to Google this, you need to Google that. And I remember hearing that way back then, thinking, well, that's a little bit paranoid. But I didn't discount it. I just kind of put it in the back of my head. And sure enough, it's true. Okay, the tech giant's astonishing growth is entirely based on drawing on what it knows of its users, whatever its CEO might sorrowfully tell us. And yes, it is. Its success is based on drawing on what it knows of its users. Watching Alexander Nix and his Cambridge Analytica henchmen bragging on Channel 4 News about their impressive repertoire of dirty tricks, the character who became irresistibly to mind was Gordon Liddy. Readers with long memories will recall him as the guy who ran the White House plumbers during the presidency of Richard Nixon. Liddy directed the Watergate burglary. I've got a cat that's meowing mournfully in the background, and I apologize for that. She has been fed. In fact, she had most of my chicken because they wouldn't leave me alone to eat it. So they're not hungry, so don't feel sorry for them. Where was I? For his plans, Liddy spent more than 4 years in jail, but went on to build a second career as a talk show host and D-list celebrity. Reflecting on this, one wonders what job opportunities, other than those of pantomime villain and Savile Row mannequin, will now be available to Mr. Nix. The investigations into the company by Carol Caldwellard in The Observer reveal that in every respect, save one important one, CA looks like that's Cambridge Analytica, looks like a standard issue psychological warfare outfit of the kind retained by political parties and sometimes national security services since time immemorial. Oh gosh, stuff like that just trips me up. Immemorial. I told you when I was young I had a slight speech impediment, and I still trip over some words, so forgive me. It did, however, have one unique selling proposition, namely its ability to offer psychographic services, voter targeting strategies allegedly derived by analyzing the personal data of more than 50 million U.S. users of Facebook. The story of how those data made the journey from Facebook servers to Cambridge Analytica is now widely known, but it's also widely misunderstood. Many people were puzzled, for example, by Facebook's vehement insistence that the exfiltration of a huge trove of users' data was not a breach. The shorthand version of what happened, that a slug of Facebook data on 50 million Americans was sucked down by a UK academic named Alexander Kogan and wrongly sold to Cambridge Analytica, misses an important point, which is that in acquiring the data in the first place, Kogan was acting with Facebook's full knowledge and approval. Yeah. And you know something? You know all those apps that you use on Facebook? Like, I don't know. I never get into all that stuff. But, stuff like psychological, take this, or what movie star do you resemble, or Candy Crush. When it asks you if it can have access to your data and so forth, and most of you just click yes. Well, you're giving it access to everything, and not just yours, but everybody that's on your friends list as well. So, yeah. In 2013, he wrote an app called this. Well, see, this is going to explain this too, I think. In 2013, he wrote an app called This Is Your Digital Life, which offered users an online personality test, describing itself as a research app used by psychologists. Approximately 270,000 people downloaded it, and in doing so gave their consent for Kogan to access information such as the city they set on their profile or content they had liked, as well as more limited information about friends who had their privacy settings set to allow it. This drew more than 50 million unsuspecting Facebook users into Kogan's net. Wow. So anyway, and this just goes on through this. Interesting. They said we have received legal threats, including from Facebook, but we're determined to continue publishing stories that raise important questions about the use of people's data in political campaigns. Anyway, this is a very interesting little article, and I can leave the links for that as well, if you're nice to me. Oh, come on, you guys are always nice to me. All right, let's go back. So, who made it public? And oh, we're got to look at one more link here. Did we look at this one? I don't know. I don't think so. Did Facebook break the law to help Obama win in 2012? Okay, spoiler alert. Yes, they did. Facebook now faces myriad legal actions for its apparent misuse of public data on its members. But one possible legal problem that isn't getting any attention involves whether Facebook made and the Obama campaign accepted illegal in-kind contributions to Obama's 2012 re-election effort. As we noted earlier, the Obama campaign's use of Facebook data dwarfed anything Trump did, and of course Trump didn't do anything. Cambridge Analytica purchased data from an academic who gathered it in 2014 through an app that he said the data would only be used for academic purposes. Yeah, and people believed him. There's no question that was misleading. No, it wasn't misleading. It was a lie. But by the time the general election rolled around, the Trump campaign had dumped Cambridge as a consultant, which meant the data Cambridge bought had no impact on the general election. In contrast, I hate when I do that. In contrast, the Obama campaign use of Facebook was massive and even more intrusive. About 1 million people let the campaign gather not only data on themselves, but on all their friends who didn't know their data was being harvested as well, a number that could easily have reached 190 million, which at the time was about equal to every active Facebook user in the US. And they're worried about Trump. Yeah. Okay. Obama's tech gurus, where are we here? Were able to match this rich treasure trove of personal data, likes, dislikes, photos, etc., with other databases, creating the largest and most detailed profiles on voters ever assembled. And the campaign aggressively used its unique access to influence millions of people the campaign identified as persuadable, sending them highly targeted campaign messages that appeared to come from their Facebook friends rather than the Obama campaign. Obama's people saw this as a massive advantage, telling the press after the election that it was the most groundbreaking piece of technology developed for the campaign. The press in turn heralded Obama for his brilliance at leveraging social media to activate voters and win an election at a time when its approval ratings were low and the economy was doing poorly. Apparently, Facebook knew its user data was being harvested en masse, but didn't care. After the Cambridge Analytica story broke, an Obama campaign staffer, Carol Davidson, tweeted about how Facebook was surprised we were able to suck out the whole social graph, but they didn't stop us once they realized what we were doing. By whole social graph, she presumably meant profiles of every Facebook user in the US. So how do you feel about that? I know how I feel. I feel like I want to rip somebody's face off. and possibly rip out their spleen. I know that's not very Christian of me, but it is how it makes me feel. It enrages me. She went on to tell the Washington Post that we would ask permission to basically scrape your profile and also scrape your friends. Basically anything that was available to scrape. We scraped it all. She also said that Facebook officials came to the campaign offices after the election recruiting Obama's tech team, and that they were very candid that they allowed us to do things they wouldn't have allowed someone else to do because they were on our side. What do you think of that? This wasn't entirely new news, by the way. The New York Times reported in 2013 in another glowing piece on Obama's tech team how the campaign's exhaustive use of Facebook triggered the site's internal safeguards. Facebook response, according to one campaign official, they'd sigh and say, "You can do this as long as you stop doing it on November 7th. That's where the potential legal trouble starts. Despite all the hosannas for Obama's technical prowess, the arrangement between the campaign and Facebook might have been outside the law." Might have been? There's still a doubt? Okay. Well, I'm not going to, finish that because it's more of the same. And this is stuff that you can all look up yourself if you want more information. You certainly don't need me for that. And, okay. So, I got one more link here. I had the strangest dream last night, and I'm not sure why all of a sudden I remembered it. Anyway, I won't get into that. I was living somewhere in the United States, in a very strange house. Okay, Cambridge Analytica and its many scandals explained, and I had noted to myself to cover the part after Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg. Here he is. Cambridge got its Facebook data through questionable means. Now, I wanted to read this because this is the sort of the timeline, sort of. Alexander Kogan, a Russian-American academic at Cambridge University, got permission from Facebook to pull data via an app he created, but he reportedly claimed he'd use his data only for academic purposes, not commercial ones. Kogan's app, This Is My Digital Life, was a personality quiz Facebook users could take. However, to take this quiz, users had to consent to give the app access to their and their friends' Facebook profiles. Okay, we already covered this in the last one, so I'm not sure what I was thinking when we covered this. I don't need to go there. We got enough other stuff to cover. All right, let's move on. And Q says, you can't imagine the magnitude of this. Well, I'm telling you, he's already told us that they've just sucked out the data from 270 million Americans, and basically every American that's on Facebook, he sucked their data out. So, that's a big magnitude. Constitutional crisis? Yeah, that's a constitutional crisis. That's a big constitutional crisis. Then he said, Twitter coming soon. So we can expect that something to do with Twitter is coming soon. I think that that's what he's telling us because, he's just gone through the whole Facebook debacle here. And then he says Twitter coming soon. So goodness only knows what's going to come out about Twitter. I mean, we know enough bad things already. Google coming soon. Ooh, well, what could be worse than what we already know about Google? I don't know. Or maybe he means justice coming soon. Google to Google. I don't know. Either way, it's all good. Amazon coming soon. Well, who knows what that is going to entail. Maybe there's more information to come out about that. Maybe there's justice to be served there. I don't know. Microsoft coming soon. Plus 12. So I would assume he means plus 12 tech companies or I mean, these are all, tech companies, so that's what I would assume. Current censorship all relates to push for power midterms. And I said that back, whenever the censorship started, that's what I felt that it was about. And I know that a lot of you felt the same. So I'm not claiming I'm some sort of genius that, oh, I knew this. I mean, it's just common sense. So, Q says, last stand, election fraud cases open, DOJ. So he's saying there's election fraud cases that are open right now in the Department of Justice. And he's saying that many. Follow the family. Now, by family, I would assume that he means the family of Sergei, because that's what he was talking about originally. But there also is a very shadowy group in Washington called The Family. And I won't get into that. There's been a whole book written about it, and it's so deep and convoluted that I won't even touch on that. But if you're interested, there is another very deep organization, and it touts itself to be religious, but it's really not. And it's called The Family. So anyway, but I think here he's talking about Sergei's family. Could be wrong, but that's what I think. Follow resignations, business, government. And we have been doing that. There is out there, if you Google it or DuckDuckGo it, I'm so used to saying Google it, then it's out there, a list of resignations. I don't have it. I should get it and download it so that I have it. I wish there was a place on our YouTube channels where we could upload documents so that people could go and download whatever we have there, but there isn't. And that I know of. Maybe there is. I don't know. But it would be a good idea. Anyway. So there is a list out there of that. Biden, China, very important marker. Now, we were just talking about Biden and China, and let's go take a boo at that, refamiliarize ourselves. Biden's son inked deal with Chinese government days after vice president's trip. Now, this trip was in, I think it was 2013. Yeah. 2013. So he's saying, Q, and I'm saying he, could be a she, we don't know who it is. And don't listen to people that say they know who it is, because they don't. Give me a break. Anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah, 2013. So he's saying this is the timeline we're looking at, because this is sort of a marker on the timeline. And we know what he did. It was a private equity firm managed by the son of former Vice President Joe Biden struck a deal with China's state-owned bank in 2013 at the same time that Biden was in the country to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Hunter Biden, who arrived in China aboard Air Force Two alongside the vice president and the rest of the U.S. delegation, was at the time in control of Rosemont Seneca Partners LLC, a private equity firm that would go on to strike a deal with the state-owned Bank of China to create a $1 billion joint investment fund. So that's what he is talking about right there. And where are we? Okay, right here. Biden, China, very important marker. Who made it public? I don't know who made it public, but then he says who really made it public. So I would assume that they did. And by they, I mean the NSA. I think that they're leaking stuff on purpose that they want to come out. They're certainly leaking stuff via these boards that we didn't know previously, and then we start, looking into it, and then it comes out in the news. So I do think that they are leaking stuff, and possibly, I don't know who else would have had the information about that, about Biden and China, unless possibly Julia Assange, but I don't know. So that would be my best guess. If you have another guess, or for certain, put it in the comments below, because people do read the comments, and I appreciate the comments that are made. Not just the comments that are, thanking me and so forth. I do appreciate that. It makes me feel that, I'm not wasting my time, that people are actually listening to this and getting something out of it. So I appreciate that. But also the people that are leaving some information, tidbits, and so forth. So we are the gatekeepers of all. By all, we mean all information. Uranium 1, to Canada, to Europe, to Russia, to Iran, to North Korea, to Syria, to Pakistan. And he's giving us the trail of the uranium, how it traveled. Canada, EU, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Syria, Pakistan, Iran next. And he's saying we are the gatekeepers of all information. That's a little bit scary to me. And, you can whatever, make fun of me for that or whatever, but it's scary to me. Anyone that is the gatekeeper of all information, because I know people say, oh, trust the plan, trust Trump, trust. I don't trust any man. And I don't mean man as in I don't trust men. I don't trust mankind, because we are all flesh and blood. And we're all capable of anything. That's why when they interview the next door neighbor of serial killers, they say, oh, he's such a nice guy. He used to barbecue with them. Yeah, he used to play football in the backyard. He was a great guy. Awesome guy. I mean, he was like the deacon of his church. Yeah, kind of like that. So, then Q says 700 billion military this year, and we know that already. Why is the military so important? Well, I think the military, obviously the military is important to any country for defense. However, I think that the military is going to be needed to keep peace when all this information is released, because what's going to happen when all of this stuff hits the news and people go into shock? We've been awakened step by step, but think of the people that haven't, and all of a sudden this, video of Hillary is going to be dropped, and apparently it's awful. So what are people going to do? How are they going to react? I think that when some of this stuff is made public, people are going to want blood. There's going to be rioting, there's going to be looting. I don't know. But that's what I would imagine. Now, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. And I hope I'm wrong. I would never wish for unrest. I would never wish for bloodshed. Or I want them brought to justice in the right manner. Anyway, reread all. So he said, by all, we mean all. And then he says, reread all. Okay, national security. These people are stupid. So when he's saying we are the gatekeepers of all, he's talking National Security Agency. National security. All, by all, we mean all. Reread all. National security. These people are stupid. And then he's saying art of the deal, he's saying this is the art of the deal. And that was, of course, Trump's book. He wrote a book called Art of the Deal. And then he says, tidal wave incoming. Buckle up, Q. Now, I don't personally believe that he's talking about a real tidal wave coming, like, a tsunami. I don't think he's talking about that. I think he's meaning a tidal wave of information is incoming. There's going to be a tidal wave of who knows what. I don't know. What that tidal wave will entail, but I'll tell you, a tidal wave cannot come in without affecting something. So, knock you right off your feet if you're not careful. I love going to the ocean just for that reason. I love being knocked off my feet by the waves. But anyways, that's my deal. Let's go on to that was just one post. Cheese and crackers, man. We're going to be here all night. Okay. Now, he posts this picture. And it says, God will judge our enemies, will arrange the meeting. I don't personally like this, and that is my personal opinion. And of course, I do try to be unbiased, but I can't help. I mean, it's my channel. Obviously, there's going to be some of my opinion here, and I don't like that. Will arrange the meeting. I know, it's meant to be cute, and it's from the SEALs, I believe. I believe it's from the Navy SEALs. Stay strong, stay together, we stand with you. Offline for a reason. So he's saying, when I'm offline for a reason. And people get all worried and think, there's no Q, and it's a psyop, and there's been 3 different Qs, and there's Q squared, and I don't know what they were talking about, Q squared. There's no Q squared. I don't, are these people even reading the same boards? I don't know. Anyway, this is just that, that's straightforward. So let's go on. Then he asks, what does house cleaning represent? Well, I would say what Q is talking about here is taking out the trash. Because when you spring clean or you house clean, you get rid of the dirt. You take out the trash, right? Cleaning, you clean, you get rid of the dirt. You dust, you get all that stuff, you take out the trash. You clean the windows so you can see clear. We always knew. Now, I don't know what they're saying. We always knew. I guess they always, I don't know. But apparently they always knew. And this is the final stage. How do I know that? Because it says right here, final stage. So, what does North Korea represent? Well, Q answers it for us. Threat, safeguard, insurance. So, North Korea represents a threat, but probably not a real threat. A safeguard, insurance. And then he says, poof. Well, when you say poof, you usually mean it's gone. What does North Korea represent? A threat, a safeguard, insurance? Poof, it's gone. That's what I think. I don't think he means poof, it's going to be blown up and gone. I think he's saying, well, all those things that it used to represent, it no longer represents. That's how I read this. Then he says, Kim to China represents something vital, key. Many will be buried before exposed. Them dash self. Many will be buried before exposed themselves. And I think some people are burying themselves because they think that maybe they're going to be immune or whatever, so they're just kind of burying themselves, going about doing things, but really the trap's been set for them. And then Q says, false flag / distractions. Well, we know that. We know that the false flags are distractions. They've always been distractions. That's the whole meaning of a false flag. So, and then he signs it Q. So now Kim to China, we've already been through that. I don't exactly know what that represents, but I don't think it represents anything bad. Because if it did, I think Q would have said so. Now, the next one is, who else was at that meeting in China? And he says, live from China, Operation Window Clean, purpose, future proves past. Everything has meaning. Q. Well, I don't actually know who else was at that meeting, but so what was the point of Kim Jong-un's mysterious trip to China? Meeting Xi Jinping was more than a rehearsal for the Korean leader's date with Donald Trump. It was necessary staging post. Kim Jong-un's clandestine trip to China was in many ways an atmospheric throwback to times long ago when it was possible to keep the movements of even national leaders hidden from public view, and the stately progress of a train was preferred to air travel. Perhaps only North Korea's Kim dynasty, which has a congenital fear of flying, even though Kim Jong-un's father actually died on his train, and our own queen remains such devotees to rail, and this is The Guardian, so it's from the UK, and that's why they're making reference to the Queen. However, this mode of transport, and whatever efforts were made to keep it temporarily under wraps, Kim's visit to Beijing marks the next stage in the about-face that began when North Korea's surprise decision to compete in a joint team with South Korea in the recent Pyongyang Winter Olympics and should culminate in the promised summit meeting with Donald Trump. In some ways, it was a necessary staging post. As Kim's first known trip outside North Korea since he became leader, it illustrates his deepened sense of personal and political security. We may in the West have underestimated how precarious Kim's position actually was 7 years ago when he inherited power. Whether or not, on his direct orders, his uncle Jang Song-thaek was court-martialed and executed in 2013 on charges of treason and much else. Just over 3 years later, Kim's exiled half-brother Kim Jong-nam was assassinated at Kuala Lumpur airport with a substance later identified as VX gas. If nothing else, Kim was clearly a leader who felt his position under threat. And we know that it was. The Beijing trip also underlined the importance to an autocrat of clan ties and the usefulness of family to signal trust and esteem for another, something in which Kim and the U.S. president could well find a rapport. Kim's sister was his personal envoy to the Olympics, and he traveled to China with his wife, a former singer whose rare appearance at his side generate the same shock effects as the early outings of Mikhail Gorbachev and his beloved Raisa. Remember, too, that Ivanka Trump represented her father at the closing ceremony in Pyongyang. So, anyway, I mean, it goes through some of this stuff, but nothing, nothing jaw-droppingly whatever. But, hang on here. I think that who else was at that meeting in China? I would say that U.S. intelligence of some sort, and probably not the black hats, probably the white hats, or who they are assuming are white hats, were there as well, because Q says live from China, and we know from different posts, we see, them at different places taking live shots of places. They have this sort of access, so sure they were there, sure they knew about it. Operation Window Clean, purpose, future proves past, everything has meaning, Q. And I'm sure that these will take on additional meaning in the days to come, as they always do. So, then he says this, which is interesting. Parkland is a distraction. Parkland, of course, being the school that was where the shooting took place. Parkland is a distraction. Well, we know that. Parkland was specifically organized and designed to distract, test, watch the news. Actors are acting. Of course. We know that. We've known this all along. Fake. And of course we know it's fake too, because now it comes out that what's his face wasn't even the little hog boy. I didn't mean that like hog boy. I meant his last name is Hogg. He wasn't even at the school when it happened, because he said in the media, and you can Google it. There's probably all sorts of YouTube videos about it. Him saying that, yeah, I had to, as soon as I heard of it, I got on my bike and I rode there with my camera to get as many interviews as I could. And I'm thinking, well, you're a student. Why weren't you in school? Why weren't you there if you were a student? And I thought that he said that he was there when it happened. So, yeah, it's all coming out. It's all unraveling. And he says, no power. Justice will be served to those playing the game. And then he said all. So justice will be served to all those playing the game. And then he says guns are safe, which of course we know this is all about the anti-gun narrative, and about taking guns and the Second Amendment right. So trust the plan, says Q. Now let's go on to the next one. And Q makes reference right here to a post where an anonymous poster says, "Free Flynn." And Q references that and says, "Done in 30. House cleaning. White House secured, final stage, Q. Now, when he says done in 30, I think he means 30 days. That would make sense to me. Couldn't be done in 30 minutes, so it would have to be 30 days. 30 months, I think that's way too far out, so I would say done in 30 days. And he says because there's house cleaning going on, the White House is now secured, and they're in their final stage, Q. So, free Flynn, it's going to be done in 30 days. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens, and we'll know that it was told to us here. Now, the next thing is Q posts these 3 tweets from Trump. Let me see. Yeah. Yep. This was posted by Q. And the tweets are Trump tweets. Received message last night from Xi Jinping of China that his meeting with Kim Jong-un went very well and that Kim looks forward to his meeting with me in the meantime, and unfortunately, maximum sanctions and pressure must be maintained at all cost. For years, and this is the next one, for years and through many administrations, everyone said that peace and the denuclearization, everybody gets upset with me the way I say nuclear, so I'm trying to say it properly, nuclearization of the Korean Peninsula was not even a small possibility. Now there's a good chance that Kim Jong-un will do what is right for his people and for humanity. Look forward to our meeting. And the next one, the Second Amendment will never be repealed. As much as Democrats would like to see this happen, and despite the words yesterday of former Supreme Court Justice Stevens, no way. We need more Republicans in 2018 and must always hold the Supreme Court. Now, after referring to these 3 tweets, Q says, notice any similarities? We are talking to you. Trust the plan. Q. We're talking to you. And you. And you. All right, let's go on. Oh, here's one that kind of makes me sick, but I got to cover it because it's in there. Hang on. Because it's a long one. All right. Here we go. First of all, he talks about this, and let's go out. He put this link there, so let's go out to it. All right, DOJ Inspector General reviews alleged FISA abuses by DOJ, and hang on, because this is going to start.
The Justice Department Inspector General.
Okay, sorry. So Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz announced Wednesday he will review potential Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act FISA abuses by both the Justice Department and the FBI following requests from Congress and Attorney General Jeff Sessions. The Office of the Inspector General released a statement Wednesday outlining the start of the review. The OIG will initiate a review that will examine the Justice Department's and the Federal Bureau of Investigation's compliance with legal requirements and with applicable DOJ and FBI policies and procedures in applications filed with the U.S. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISC, relating to a certain U.S. person. The statement obtained by Fox News read, as part of this examination, the OIG will review information that was known to the DOJ and the FBI at the time the applications were filed from or about an alleged FBI confidential source. The OIG statement added that Horowitz would also review the DOJ's and FBI's relationship and communications with the alleged source as they relate to the FISC applications. The statement continued, if circumstances warrant, the OIG will consider including other issues that may arise during the course of the review. Last month, Sessions directed Horowitz to probe the allegations of government surveillance abuse in light of memos received on Capitol Hill by the House Intelligence Committee about FBI and DOJ efforts to obtain FISA warrants to surveil Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. We believe the Department of Justice must adhere to the high standards in the FISA court. Sessions said in February at a news conference, yes, it will be investigated, and I think that's just the appropriate thing. The Inspector General will take that as one of the matters he'll deal with. So, yeah, I'm not going to read through all this. It's out there, it's on Fox News, and it's big news, so it's easy to find. Let's go back to here. Think outside the box. Timing of release. So he's saying post Facebook news. And what he's saying is this comes after the news of the Facebook spill. Okay. Facebook worldwide, Google worldwide, Amazon worldwide, Twitter worldwide. Tracking active, listening active. And I think he's telling us that the tracking on all of this stuff, it's active, it's listening. The listening is active. The data shared, data used for what? And he explains it all to us. Kickbacks, big time. Private, public, bypass regulations, laws, intelligence agencies across the globe in partnership to spy on citizens. Constitutional crisis? I'd say so. Magnitude? Huge. Who can you trust? Well, I think the implication that he wants us to come to here is we can trust POTUS. Again, I caution that because saying that there's only one person that you can trust. Anyway, who organized? How do social media search engine platforms weight elections? Well, we know that already because they weight elections by making sure that when you Google that the right stuff comes up about the right candidate and that you're listening to the right narrative at the right time. And they know you. They know your likes, your dislikes, who your friends are. If you go to church, if you're an alcoholic, if you're into porn, they know everything. They know everything about you. And you know what? I bet you every one of us could be blackmailed in some way. Because I bet you in a conversation, every single one of us have said something that they shouldn't have said. And it's scary to know that they have that much power over us. And let me assure you that it's over us all. Have you ever worked? I worked in the corporate environment, and I noticed when they wanted to fire somebody, they would start going back through all their communications and all their emails and everything. They'd go back and they'd start just paying attention to everything. Why? Because they knew that they could find something somewhere to fire them over. And that's what they can do when they have all this information. They have every phone call we've made. They know what we've searched for on the internet. They know what we buy at Amazon, what books we read, who our friends are. When we go on vacation, where we go on vacation, how much money we have, everything, what size we wear, everything. Okay, regulation or kill stop. And I think right here he's saying, should we regulate it or should we just stop it? And then he says, peace through strength. At Snowden, this part's a little confusing to me, I must admit. At Snowden, shine the light bright, DOA. Now, I am assuming at this time that Snowden has come over to the White Hats. That's what I'm assuming. I don't know. But he's saying shine the light bright, and then he says DOA, dead on arrival. Why is Hussein traveling the world, and of course that's Barack Obama, traveling the world, conducting high-level meetings? Use logic. I don't know. I mean, I can only imagine. I know that, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I'd love to hear it. But it's odd because he then goes into the sex cult. So it's odd to me because he's saying, why is Hussein traveling the world conducting high-level meetings? And I didn't know he was. I mean, I knew he had, but he's just been kind of like missing in action for a long time now. All right. Use logic. And then he gives us another link, and we're going to go out to that and look at this. Makes me sick. Come on. Come on, little bunny. Come on. I'm all for you. You can do it. Okay. NXIVM cult leader coerced women into sex, branded initials on his slaves, authorities say. Yeah. Sorry, I had to take a drink there. Now, I'm sure you've seen this. It's all over the news. It's really horrendous. And the more I got into this, the more I really felt sick. A New York cult leader who called women his slaves, branded them with his initials, and coerced them into sex acts was arrested in Mexico on sex trafficking charges, authorities said Monday. Keith Raniere, the co-founder of NXIVM cult that began more than 2 decades ago, was taken into custody after Mexican immigration officials found him in a luxury Mexican villa near Puerto Vallarta, the Albany Times-Union reported. He was reportedly staying at the $10,000 a week villa with several women. Raniere returned to Texas on Monday. He's expected to appear in court Tuesday in Fort Worth on the charges filed by federal prosecutors in Brooklyn. Authorities said Raniere, who is known as Vanguard in the organization, formed a secretive group within NXIVM that had women join a sex master club called Dominus. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Sororium, which translate to master over the slave woman. The women, usually thin because they stuck to low-calorie diets. And let me tell you, I've seen some of the pictures of these women, and they look like they're near death. Seriously, like severely anorexic. Were allegedly brainwashed into thinking the best way to advance was to become a slave. Raniere coerced the women into having sex with him and doing menial chores for masters, the criminal complaint stated. The women also partook in videotaped branding ceremonies in which they had Raniere's initials burned into their pelvic area. And when it says pelvic area, it was actually, on their pubic area, not just like close to the vagina. During the branding ceremonies, slaves were required to be fully naked, and the master would order one slave to film while the other held down the slave being branded. I can't even imagine how much that would hurt. The women were allegedly threatened with public humiliation if they didn't keep the arrangement a secret. Raniere punished the women for not allowing orders or not following orders by forcing them to wear fake cow udders over their breasts while people called them derogatory names, court paper stated. Other times they were reportedly stuck in cages. Raniere fled to Mexico last November after the government began interviewing potential witnesses about the cult leaders' alleged activities. The New York Times published stories of some of the women who defected from their secret sorority. Federal authorities struggled to find Raniere for months because he used encrypted email and ditched his phone. The defendant was he ditched his phone. See, it's hard to follow people if they don't have their phone. The defendant was uncooperative when immigration authorities arrived and after he was taken into custody. The women chased the car in which the defendant was being transported in his own car at high speed, court paper stated. On Tuesday, federal agents raided the home of NXIVM co-founder Nancy Salzman in Oregon Trail. Now, who's Nancy Salzman? Let's go back. We'll get there all in due time, but this is not from Q, but I found this picture. I wanted to show it to you all. This is the branding. Let me make this bigger for you. And this is the guy. He looks like he's stoned out of his head. Could be just his glasses, but I really do think he's stoned. And these are the initials. And see, his name is Keith, and there's the K, and there's the R, Raniere. And this is another girl that was in on it with him, and those are her initials, AM. So those are the two brands that they used, and that looks extremely, extremely painful, and on an area of their body that's extremely sensitive. Not to mention it's symbolic. But anyway. Wow. These people really are sick. I don't understand how he was able to convince these girls to do this, but anyway. NXIVM sex cult leader Keith Raniere arrested for raping girls as young as 12. The leader of the cult, which is alleged to have branded, blackmailed, and brainwashed women, has been arrested on allegations of sex trafficking. So, now, Nancy Salzman, who is Raniere's right-hand woman, made more than a dozen contributions to Clinton's coffers, or there has been more than a dozen contributions to Clinton's coffers from NXIVM. Interesting. And they're both members of the Clinton Global Initiative. And then he says, MSM will not highlight bottom to top unravel. And what we're seeing now, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a bottom to top unravel. And at this point, we're getting to the top people. And it's starting to unravel. And there's starting to be, you know, big name arrests. Let's go to this link. I don't know how long I've been talking, but I feel like I've been talking for hours. All right. Now, I found this out on Vote. And it was just interesting. Feds raid NXIVM Corp co-founder Nancy Salzman house. Salzman was a member of Slick Willie's invitation-only Clinton initiatives. The NXIVM Corp leader Keith Raniere was already arrested on charges of sex trafficking and forced labor. The raid on Salzman home seems to be a follow-up to finding out information, since Salzman was also co-founder, but the scope may be widening since Salzman was also a member of Slick Willie's, quote, charitable organization, unquote, global initiatives. The notion that any of Clinton's can be charitable is laughable, but there you go. The membership is invitees only, so Salzman did rub noses, or perhaps only body parts, with Slick Willie. Yippee and hallelujah, it really does seem as if the scope of the sex trafficking is widening and that law enforcement is trying to net not only NXIVM, and then they said, what the hell kind of name is that? Sounds like a gladiator pick. But perhaps bigger fish in the global waters. A member posted about the first phase. Here's the post on Keith Raniere's. Okay. Now let me see what's down here. The FBI raided the Saratoga County residence of NXIVM Corp co-founder Nancy Salzman on Tuesday. The hours-long search of Salzman's single-family residence on Oregon Trail in Half Moon was taking place a day after Keith Raniere, the leader and co-founder of the secretive colony-based organization, was arrested in Mexico on charges of sex trafficking and forced labor. He was sought by the FBI based on federal criminal complaint filed the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn, which opened an investigation of Raniere's organization last fall. Salzman has been a powerful figure in the organization since it was set up more than 2 decades ago. The complaint filed recently in connection with an ongoing federal grand jury investigation, the Eastern District of New York alleges that Raniere, known as the Vanguard, took part in forming a secretive group within NXIVM that coerced women into joining a slave master club. The women were also branded on their lower abdomens with a design that included the initials of Raniere and Allison Mack, an actress, an NXIVM associate who is referred to in the complaint as an unnamed co-conspirator. As for Salzman membership, the Clinton initiatives, here's another article from 2007. It was long before Pizzagate, and when Tony and John Podesta were hammering pizza for about an hour and leaving map-related hankies for real estate agents to find. So I'm not going to get into all this. There's a lot. That's another thing that you can look into, because that's something that I'd like to get into further. Well, not really, but there's a lot there. There's a lot there. And who knows how far that widens out to. Like, who knows how many people were involved in that, and if the Clintons were involved, which wouldn't surprise me. Not in the least. So, Q tells us the MSM's not going to highlight it, but there's a bottom to top unravel. And that's what we're seeing. So let's go on. Oh my gosh, it's tomorrow already. It's 12:03 Eastern Standard Time. This is going to be one honking long video. We're almost done though. Stay with me. Okay. Now, here, Q is telling us about being locked out of the board. He's saying CM locked out of GA. Now, CM, I think, means Configuration Manager, maybe, locked out of Great Awakenings. That's what I think he's saying. I don't know if that's exactly what he's saying. It might be Content Management, locked out of Great Awakenings, because I think it is a content management system. I'm not sure. But anyway, the long and the short of it is that they're locked out. The Q team communication devices are under attack. Read-only, it's now a read-only board. Great Awakenings now locked and it terminated. Attack source is overseas. Code Monkey locked out. They are getting desperate. New board will be up in 1 to 2 days. So, Sniffer detects traces of bypass override. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a computer. I'm very good with computers, but I'm not a code person or anything. I don't know what they're talking about here. Layers upon layers. New approach to silence. It's a new approach to silence Q. New board will be created. They're going to have to create a brand new board because this is now compromised and they're locked out. So it's a read-only board. Q is not able to post anything there. There's going to be a new board and there's going to be a team to secure it and time to complete. I assume that's 1 to 2 days. Could be 1 to 2 weeks. I assume it's 1 to 2 days. Because I think that that's something pretty important that they would jump right on. So, Q then quotes himself and then refers to this and says, "We are being attacked on all devices used to talk. Great Awakenings is terminated. Locked. No further posts on Great Awakening. Kill," which means they're going to terminate it. No further posts on Great Awakening 8chan. Source is abroad. The source of the attack is abroad. Somebody from abroad is attacking. It's not domestic. It's not somebody within the US, probably because they've got control over that now. And he says Q. So that's it. I believe that is the last post. Nope, it's not. Okay. This is the last post. I know that for a fact. Now, this was posted by just an anonymous user, an anon, and this person is ticked off at Q and has probably been listening to American intelligence media because they said Jeff Sessions exposed. Q agent of the clowns in America. Jeff Sessions agent of the clown in America equals Hillary Clinton. 8chan and Q have been comped big time. These posts tell it all. We're not going to go through these because Q is going to deny it anyway, like just below. He's going to say, so what's the sense? Q's already telling us it's not true. So 8chan and Q have been comped. Do not compromised. Do not trust anything Q says. He is a clown agent of the Kabbalah. 8chan also has been compromised by clowns in America. Jeff Sessions, Mueller, Comey, Ray, Trey Gowdy, Obama, Hillary, Rosenstein, D.W. Schultz, A1 brother criminals, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Harry Reid, and more equals all clowns in America agents of the banking cartel trying to take America down. Scumbag Sessions and fake Q were just exposed the other day by American intelligence media. So yeah, that's where they're getting all this information. And Q refers to this and says, "You failed, Q." So there's a big time attack on Q. They've seized the board, or they've frozen the board. They're locked out. They're going to have to create another way to communicate, and then they're attacked by somebody that's been listening to American intelligence media. I could not get through that post, that whole video, because between the two of them, I guess they're husband and wife, arguing back and forth, and it was like, give me a break. And then it just seems like there was all this, I'm smarter than all of you people. And I don't know. I couldn't listen to it. But anyway, to each his own. Anyway, so that's it for today and tonight. And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. You're probably all in bed by now, except on the West Coast. So anyway, or is the West Coast ahead? No, they're behind, aren't they? Yeah, they're behind. So anyway, that's it. And I will talk to you guys later. Stay safe, and maybe back tomorrow, but I may not be because I've got a pile of work to do tomorrow. So anyway, if Q posts, I'll come back, but I don't think he will because he's already told us it's going to be 1 to 2 days. So have a good night. Talk to you later.